In any economy, people are engaged in various types of activities. An economy is the sum total of all economic activities of the people, society or country. Farmers cultivate their fields, laborers do wage work, teachers go to school, doctors care for the sick in hospitals, shopkeepers are busy in their shops, etc. We see people engaged in a variety of jobs. Every person in the society has to do some sort of economic activity to earn money in order to survive. An economic activity is that activity which enables a person to generate income. On the other hand, a non-economic activity is that activity which does not give any income to a person. In this chapter, we will study primary, secondary and tertiary sectors, disguised unemployment, organized and unorganized sectors, public and private sectors. Classification of economic activities. On the basis of economic activities, an economy can be divided into the following sectors: primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector. On the basis of employment, an economy can be divided into the following sectors: organized sector, unorganized sector. On the basis of ownership of industries, an economy can be divided into the following sectors: public sector, private sector. Primary, secondary and tertiary sectors. Primary sector. It involves those activities in which goods are produced by making use of natural resources such as land, water, rainfall, etc. All agriculture-related activities are included in this sector, so it is also known as agriculture and related sector. Other activities included in this sector are fishing, dairy, animal husbandry, forestry, mining, etc. For example, production of cotton plant, wheat, mining of iron ore, etc. Secondary sector. It involves those activities in which the goods produced in primary sector are modified into some other form for consumption. It usually involves manufacturing of new goods using natural products. This sector is also known as the industrial sector. For example, production of cloth using the cotton plant, production of sugar from sugarcane, etc. Tertiary sector. It involves those activities that supplement and support the activities of the primary as well as secondary sectors. No production activities are undertaken by this sector. This sector offers services such as banking, transport, storage, communication, etc. It is also known as the service sector. It also includes the services of doctors, teachers, lawyers, accountants, administrators, computer professionals, etc. Comparing the three sectors. In an economy, a huge number of people are involved in the production of goods and services. However, the number of people employed in each sector and the output produced by them varies in each case. So it is important to understand a few concepts before we can begin to study the contribution of each sector in the economy. Distinction between intermediate goods and final goods. Gross domestic product or GDP. Historical change in sectors. Distinction between intermediate goods and final goods. Intermediate goods. These are those goods which are used to produce other goods, therefore, they move from one stage of production to another in the process of manufacturing final goods. Final goods. These are those goods which are meant for use by the final consumer. In other words, goods that reach the consumer are called final goods. Gross domestic product. It refers to the sum total of value of all the final goods and services produced in all the sectors of an economy during a year. In India, The measurement of GDP is done by the central government with the help of various government departments of all states and union territories. Historical change in sectors. A certain pattern has been observed in all the developed economies. First stage, agricultural activities formed the most significant part of an economy and employed the most number of people. Second stage, as agricultural sector grew and was able to produce more than sufficient quantities of products for use by the consumers, some people employed in this sector began to move towards the manufacturing or the industrial sector. It gained more significance in terms of production and employment. Third stage, with great advances in science and technology in the past 100 years or so, economies across the world saw the rise of the services sector. In almost all the developed economies, the tertiary sector has now become the most important sector in terms of total production. Rising importance of the tertiary sector. Over the last 5 decades, Indian economy has experienced the tremendous growth of the tertiary sector. In the year 2010-2011, tertiary sector replaced the primary sector as the largest producing sector in India. Reasons for the growth of tertiary sector in India. Provision of basic services by the government. As India is a welfare state, the government is responsible for providing services like healthcare, education, post and telegraph, police stations, legal services, defense, banking, public transport, insurance, etc. to the public. Development of primary and secondary sectors. Growth in these two sectors necessitates the demand for service of the tertiary sector to ensure proper working of these sectors. Increase in income of the people. With the increase in income, people start demanding more and better services in terms of entertainment, recreation, healthcare services, education, etc. Advances in science and technology. Innovations in these fields have led to the creation and development of new services. The demand for such services has risen rapidly in the last 2 decades. But it must be remembered that the growth of tertiary sector does not imply a uniform growth across all the industries of this sector. There are services such as shopkeeping, retail and wholesale, repairing, transport, etc., where the level of growth as well as income is not as high as the level of growth experienced in industries that require a highly skilled and educated workforce. Disguised unemployment. It refers to a situation where a worker is made to work less than his or her potential. It is different from unemployment because the person is not unemployed, rather he or she is underemployed. Suppose a family of 6 works on a farm of 2 hectares of unirrigated land totally dependent on rainfall. For certain reasons, they can find work anywhere else, but the work done by them can be managed by only 3 members of the family. This means that half of the family, that is 3 members, are underemployed. This kind of unemployment, though very common in the agricultural sector, is not necessarily limited to it and can be found in other sectors as well. Disguised unemployment in case of India. Even after 60 years of independence, more than 60% of the population is engaged in primary sector activities. Unlike the shift in contribution of each sector to GDP, no such shift has taken place in terms of employment in each sector. This is because of the following reasons. Not enough jobs were created in the secondary and tertiary sectors. Rate of increase in employment in secondary and tertiary sector is very low. Consequently, more than half the population is still working in the primary sector, while contributing only a quarter of the GDP. Creation of more employment. More employment opportunities can be created with the help of certain initiatives taken by government. As disguised unemployment is more common in rural areas and in the agricultural sector, the following measures can be implemented to eradicate this problem. By providing irrigation facilities, it will help those farmers that are dependent on rainfall for the production of crops. They will be able to grow more crops and employ more people or use the full potential of the existing workers. By investing in transport and storage facilities, it will help farmers to produce more crops and sell them at a profit. Transport, storage and trade of agricultural products will help create more jobs. By providing credit facilities, the government can provide banking and credit services to help farmers to cultivate their lands in a better and more efficient manner by investing in better quality of seeds, fertilizers, etc. By promoting local products and industries, it involves encouraging and promoting those industries where semi-skilled workers can be employed in a large number. It can also include services such as tourism, handicrafts, etc. By expanding healthcare and educational services, it would create jobs for teachers and healthcare professionals. Quick measures. The Government of India has implemented a law, Right to Work. Under this law, National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005 NREGA 2005 was introduced that guarantees 100 days of employment to workers or unemployment allowance in lieu of it. Organized and unorganized sectors. Organized sector. It covers those enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and where people have assured work. They are registered with the government and have to follow its rules and regulations under various laws such as Minimum Wage Act, Factories Act, Payment of Gratuity Act, Shops and Establishments Act, etc. Employees in the organized sector enjoy security of employment. They are expected to work only a fixed number of hours. If they work more, they have to be paid overtime by the employer. They also get several other benefits from the employers such as Provident Fund, gratuity, medical benefits, paid leaves, payments during holidays, accommodation facilities and also get pension after retirement. For example, a teacher taking classes in a school, an officer working in public sector bank, a doctor in a hospital treating patients, a factory worker employed in a big factory, etc. Unorganized sector. The unorganized sector is characterized by small and scattered units which are largely outside the government's control. There are no rules and regulations to be followed in this sector. Jobs in this sector are not highly paid and there is no job security. There is no provision of other benefits such as paid leaves, holidays, leave due to sickness, etc. There is a high degree of insecurity. People in this sector can be asked to leave without any reason. Some people are asked to leave when there is less work. For example, a person doing miscellaneous repair works, farmers working in their own fields, hired laborers, a head load worker carrying a bag of cement in a market, a farmer irrigating his field, a daily wage laborer working under a contractor, a handloom weaver working in a house, etc. Protecting workers in the unorganized sector. Workers of unorganized sector such as landless agricultural laborers, small and marginal farmers, sharecroppers and artisans in the rural areas also need to be supported through adequate facilities for timely delivery of seeds, credit, agricultural inputs, storage facilities and marketing outlets. Similarly, workers in small-scale industries casual workers in construction, trade and transport, street vendors, headload workers, rag pickers, garment makers, etc. in urban areas also need to be protected. The government can help them by making use of their goods and services. In addition to this, the majority of workers from scheduled castes and tribes, backward communities and others in the unorganized sector find that they are discriminated and need protection. Their protection is necessary for economic as well as development of the country. Adequate laws and reforms need to be implemented to protect them from discrimination and exploitation. Public and private sectors. Public sector. It refers to that sector which is controlled and owned by the government and whose organization and management is also overseen by the government. The primary motive is usually welfare of the state. Example, railways, postal services, etc. Private sector. All economic activities are owned, controlled and managed by private individuals. All the economic activities of the private sector are influenced by the profit motive. For example, companies such as Reliance Industries, Airtel, PepsiCo, etc. Importance of public sector. The private sector cannot provide all the goods and services to the people at a reasonable cost. It is the responsibility of the public sector to ensure the provision of these services to people. Societies need for several things. Society needs several things and the public sector provides these things at reasonable rates. It may be beyond the capacity or business norms of the private sector. Difficulty of collecting money. The private sector cannot collect money individually from all the consumers in the way government can in the form of taxes. Providing subsidies to the household and private sector. It helps in easing the burden on these two sectors. Fair price to the farmers. The public sector or government in India buys agricultural produce such as wheat, rice and fruits from farmers at a fair price. The public sector stores this in godowns and sells at a lower price to consumers through ration shops. The government has to bear some of the costs involved. Providing health and education for all. The public sector in countries like India is also in the business of providing health and education. The private sector charges high rates for the high-quality facilities they retail, which the poor sections of society cannot afford. Providing other facilities. The public sector also plays an important role in providing other facilities for human development such as safe drinking water, housing facilities for the poor, and food and nutrition for all.